What is up, everybody? We're back here at King Film Sports for the NFL Week 15 betting locks and game predictions video here on the channel. And we had a pretty successful Week 14, especially if you were in the Discord on Sunday during these games when we were giving out props and live bets. We absolutely killed that there, including Monday night. We had a big one on CeeDee Lamb first touchdown score in that game, which cashed. But first here, we will get to the Week 14 reactions, and also be sure to watch our playoff picture breakdown and predictions for the rest of the season there. That's a great video that I uploaded on the channel yesterday. But we started out here with the recap, and we had a great Thursday night game between the Packers and the Lions. And it was a desperation spot in terms of winning the division for the Packers. They absolutely needed this game, so we took the 3 in the hook, especially considering the Lions' injuries on defense. The Lions do end up winning this game by 3 points, so we end up covering there. And the big story of the game was the Lions' fourth down attempts. They had 5 of them. They converted 4 of them. The one that they didn't convert was on their own 30-yard line, I believe, a pitch out to Jahmyr Gibbs, which did not work there. Packers get the ball in plus territory and then score easily there. But later on in the game, the Lions had some big conversions, including a couple in the red zone to score touchdowns there. So ultimately, Lions fared very well on those fourth down attempts, ended up winning the game, and also this one went over the total as a result of those conversions, along with a big Goff interception in his own end, which kind of killed the Lions there a little bit, but obviously they ended up winning the game there. Dan Campbell with some curious coaching decisions, but it ends up paying off. Then next in the Panthers-Eagles game, we had the Panthers team total over 16. I thought it was a less risky play than the Panthers spread, but I was obviously wrong here as the Panthers were very close in the game and stifled this Eagles offense a lot. Actually, a lot of drama coming out of this Eagles locker room after that game between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, as it's just not clicking against the Panthers defense that I thought coming into the game was not very good. I thought that the Panthers would just end up scoring in garbage time to cash this, but they should have actually went over. They should have scored the 17 points, but Eddie Pinheiro ends up missing a PAT late, so the Panthers stuck on 16 points. Then they have a chance to win the game at the end, but Leggett has a crucial drop on the goal line there when they are trying to take the lead by 1. So just a brutal beat there for the Panthers, and the Eagles ended up winning there, and our team total in this video ends up pushing. Then we had the Raiders-Buccaneers, Raiders plus 7 in this one, and felt pretty good about it. Around halftime in this game, Raiders were down 14-10, I believe. We're driving, 9-minute drive, and then Aiden O'Connell has a horrible interception there for the Raiders. He ends up getting injured, and then Desmond Ridder is not able to do much. Just a very sloppy game on both sides, actually. The Bucs didn't play great in this game, but ultimately they're just a better team and made a few more big plays there, so the Bucs end up winning by 15 in that one. Raiders does not come home. And then the big NFC West showdown where the Cardinals needed this game. They had lost to Seattle a couple weeks prior, and they end up losing it again. I really thought they were going to rout Seattle one on the first drive. Kyler was dicing up the Seattle defense to take a 7-0 lead, but then 2 interceptions later, the Seahawks have a big lead in the first half, and the Cardinals were never fully able to supplant them there. And then also frustrating when they had a late miss by their kicker, as well as their punter going down in this game. So Seattle just played better. Geno did not have the big mistake that he usually has in these divisional games, so the Cardinals end up losing this game, and Seattle takes a stranglehold on the division there. Then didn't have a betting lock. We actually did take the Rams plus 4.5 live in this game early on, but it was just a great game that I wanted to touch on, where Josh Allen has 3 touchdowns passing and rushing, but they end up losing by 2 to the Rams there. Rams just played a perfect game really on offense. Stafford was clicking. Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp outside were extraordinary. And then I just think there was also the dynamic of the Bills coming off that big win, clinching the division against the Niners the previous week. It was just a letdown spot, at least on defense. They also had a big punt blocked in that second quarter, which really put it out of reach for a lot of the game there, but they did fight back. So just a very thrilling game there we had on Sunday afternoon. And then the Sunday night game between the Chargers and the Chiefs, I was just thinking, this is a divisional battle here. Kansas City could clinch the division in this game, but it's always going to be close between these two teams. And had the Chargers plus 4, it did not look good early as the Chiefs were up 13-0. Chargers could do nothing because they couldn't run the ball. There was no J.K. Dobbins, and then their receivers had no separation, and then Justin Herbert took a shot early on. I thought we may get Taylor Heineke for the rest of the game, which obviously would have been a death sentence, but Herbert comes back, and the Chargers in the second half score 2 touchdowns to take the lead, and then it's a back-and-forth affair for the rest of the game where the Chiefs have a 31-yard field goal lined up, and it hits the upright and then goes in there. So the Chiefs obviously end up winning this game, as they always do in these close games, but the Chargers spread comes home, and then it was just a dogfight in that game between 2 pretty inept offenses and great defenses in that one, so the under 43 cashes easily there. And just a quick note, because I have bet against the Chiefs in all 13 of their games, and they have not covered in the last 7. And just a note as well that they've played 5 divisional games so far this season. They are 0-5 against the spread and 5-0 straight up in those games. So just absolutely crazy the streak that they're on. They just cannot cover a spread, but still at 12-1, sitting pretty to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. So with that, we get to the Week 15 predictions here and betting locks. We started out with a great Thursday night game here, a quasi-elimination game here in the NFC West as both of these teams trying to chase down Seattle. The Rams actually control their own destiny as they play Seattle late, beat them earlier this season, and they're sitting at 7-6. Niners big win against the Bears, but they are going to need to win this game and then keep winning and get a lot of help. In this one, though, I will take the Niners minus the 2.5. I think that they are the better team, and if you remember earlier this season, I believe in Week 3, these two teams matched up in SoFi. Niners were absolutely killing the Rams for a lot of that game, but then a few big mistakes on special teams, a couple key drops, and their defense letting go of the rope late. They end up blowing a big lead to this Rams team, and that was just absolutely sickening for this team now who's just battling to be in the playoff mix. So I do think that the Niners are the better team. Shanahan perennially has owned McVay in these matchups. He had a 9-game winning streak last year going into Week 18 before they rested all their starters in that matchup. So I just think that Shanahan will have a great game plan in this game, and Purdy in this offense will continue being great. And then for this Rams team, I think this is just a bit of a letdown spot on a short week after a huge win against that Buffalo team. And really, I just think that some of those offensive plays are not very sustainable with Puka and Cooper Kupp against this Niners team. Sure, they're going to hit some of them, but I just think that Stafford is bound to make a few more mistakes than he did in that Bills game. So I think it's going to take a near perfect effort from the Rams offense like it did against the Bills a few days ago, and I just do not think that it's coming in this one, but we will monitor the Niners injury situation. They've got players like Isaac Guerrero, Trent Williams, obviously, and Nick Bosa on the injury report, so we'll see if they play on a short week. Also, big story, Dre Greenlaw might be back in the lineup for this one as well, but I do love the Niners minus 2.5 in a desperation spot at home in that one. Then next we get to the Sunday slate where we started off with the Cowboys and the Panthers. Give me the Panthers in this matchup. I do think that this Cowboys team has been improved in the last few weeks. Very tough loss on Monday night to the Bengals in that matchup, but I just think on a short week here against a Panthers team who have likewise been improving, Bryce Young will have a great game in this one against a struggling Dallas defense. Overshown went out in that one, and I just think that there will be a little beat up in this matchup. Panthers just due for a win here. So not a betting lock as the spread has ballooned to minus 2.5 or minus 3 here for Carolina, but I do think that this is a good spot for them at home there. I think Bryce Young plays well. Then we get the Chiefs and the Browns, and I said that I've bet against the Chiefs every game this season and has worked out pretty well. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger later on this week. For this video, I'm just taking the Chiefs outright, no betting lock for now, but the spread is just sitting at 4 points, and I know that this Browns team is definitely undervalued at 3-10. Jameis Winston, a couple big mistakes last week, and then also Kadarius Toney, a heinous muffed punt last week in addition to a 15-yard taunting penalty that he had in that game, just a complete liability. So I do think that this is a big potential trap spot, upset spot where the Chiefs could get caught in a tough environment in Cleveland. That team is still fighting hard, but at the end of the day, it's just Patrick Mahomes and this team with all this experience and pedigree and that defense against Jameis Winston. That'll be a very volatile matchup there because I could see Jameis having a few big mistakes or just completely going off and scoring 30 points there in a shootout. So we will see in that game, but I got to pick the Chiefs there to win for now. Then next we get to a pretty interesting matchup. Dolphins, as I chronicled in the playoff picture breakdown, 2 games out, and they really need to win this game against the Houston team that's coming off of the bye. I will take the Texans here. Both of these teams are kind of an enigma to me. I mean, that Dolphins effort was absolutely putrid for a lot of that Jets game, but they end up scoring late to get it to overtime and then score the touchdown in overtime. But really, that defense is very concerning there. And then Houston, I just don't really know what I'm going to get from this team either because that defense is not great. You have that Tennessee game where the offense didn't really look good either. So I don't know, but just coming off of the bye here at home, I do think that they are the more consistent team. So I think that this one will be pretty close, but give me CJ Stroud over Tua Tagovailoa there. Then we get to a betting lock, Jets at the Jaguars. I know this one is a very square play. The professionals probably will be on the Jags if they can get a bigger number like plus 3.5 or plus 4. But give me the Jets minus the 3 points. I know that these teams are both 3-10, but the Jets are just so much better in my opinion, and they're showing some good fight. They definitely should have won that Seattle game a couple weeks ago, and they definitely should have won last week in Miami. I know this is the second leg of a road trip here in the South in Florida. But I do think that this team will keep fighting hard. Aaron Rodgers is playing for his NFL career. He wants to be the quarterback of this team or another team in the years to come. Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson are performing pretty well in their own right. And then I think that this Jets defense, while they're not great, they're playing against Mac Jones, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL here. This Jets offense was horrible in spite of that win last week. It was really the defense that kept them in it. But just in this matchup, I think that the Jets offense will reign supreme here. I expect something like a 24-10 scoreline here. Do not think that it will be competitive, but definitely be sure to get it at the 3. I don't like it at 3.5 or 4 there for the Jets. Then we get to the Commanders and the Saints here. Commanders coming off the bye. Give me them to win this game. I would actually be inclined for a Saints upset pick here for this Commanders team. I think this Commanders team a little overvalued due to that early season Jayden Daniels success. But then Derek Carr goes down in that matchup. I mean, we saw Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler for this team earlier this season, and it was absolutely disgusting for that New Orleans team. So I think it's just back to that here. Commanders, great spot to get back to their winning ways after the bye. So give me them to win big in the Big Easy there. Then we get to a huge spread between the Ravens and the Giants here, currently sitting at 15 points. I will take the Ravens to win easily against this New York team coming off of the bye here after that tough loss to Philadelphia a couple weeks ago. But the Ravens haven't really blown many teams out other than that Broncos game. So that is slightly concerning if you want the Ravens to cover this spread. Maybe if this one gets up to 17, we could consider a Giants spot because they fought pretty hard, especially near the end of that game. Should have went to overtime, but the field goal ends up getting blocked there late in that game. So this team is a little more feisty than some may think. Baltimore hasn't really blown a lot of teams out, but from an outright perspective, you've got to think that the Ravens will win this one coming off of the bye. Then next we get to a pretty interesting game here between the Bengals and the Titans. Bengals coming off this short week here, second straight game on the road, but can they keep that momentum? We will see. This Titans defense statistically has been pretty good, but against some of the better offenses that they've played, they have not been great. I will take the Bengals to win this game just because Will Levis and the Titans offense has been so bad. Only 10 points last week against Jacksonville. Yes, the Cincinnati defense is horrible as well, but Will Levis will definitely just give them a charity pick 6 in this game or strip sack fumble. So just think that Cincinnati is the better team, and they are playing for their playoff lives here at 5-8. So I do think that Joe Burrow gets it done in Nashville there. Then next we get to the afternoon slate. Patriots at the Cardinals, and give us the over 46 in this matchup here. I think we're due for a Cardinals offensive explosion. They've kind of been dead on offense the last few weeks, whether it be both Seattle games where Kyler makes huge mistakes or that Minnesota game where they're settling for a couple more field goals than desired and Kyler throws a couple interceptions here. I just think that Kyler's playing style lends itself to a volatile game with a lot of points here, forcing it into tough windows. And then this Patriots team coming off the bye, I do not think that Arizona's defense is great in their own right, so I think Drake May has been playing great football. I think the Patriots probably score at least 20 points in this matchup, and maybe Drake May throws a couple interceptions there, leading to some more Cardinals points in that one. So I just see a lot of volatility in this matchup and a lot of points between two not great defenses and dynamic quarterbacks in this one, so give us the over in that one. And then we get to a pretty interesting game in terms of playoff implications between the Colts and the Broncos. Give us the Colts plus the 5.5 points here. I just think that this is way too many. If you can get a 4 and a hook, I would pounce on that as well. Definitely love it at the +4 number as well, just because this Colts team coming off of the bye, I think that Shane Steichen will dial up a great game plan against this Denver defense here. And it really just comes down to Anthony Richardson's playing style, but I think just more experience in this starting lineup here after he got benched will do him wonders. And then this Broncos team, I just think that they're a little overinflated in the market here. I think the spread should be around 3. Bo Nix and Sean Payton, I do not doubt their ability coming off of the bye week, but I just think that they are not much better than this Colts team at home in a matchup of young quarterbacks here. So I will take it to be a very close game, and I will also take the Colts to win outright there as well. And then we get to the game of the day, probably Bills at the Lions, and give me the Bills to win this game. I don't feel great about it because it's a second straight road matchup. This happened to the Bills earlier this season, I think in weeks 4 and 5, where they went to Baltimore, got blown up, and then had to play at Houston the next week. They ended up losing by 3 there. It was very close. I think it could be a similar dynamic in this one, but I just think that the Lions are so due for a loss at this point here at 12-1, 11-game winning streak, and they are really cutting it close in a lot of these games, especially the last 2, only winning by a field goal at home here. So I just think that the defensive injuries will catch up to them in this one, and this 4th down luck has to course correct over time. They are not going to make all of these ones in key situations. And then I think this Bills defense, it's a bounce back spot for them. So I think that they're going to force Jared Goff into a couple mistakes here and stop this Lions dynamic running game there. So I just see it as a bounce back spot for the Bills there. And if we can get a +3, I would pounce on that from a Buffalo perspective in that one. Then we get to the Bucs at the Chargers. This is a fun game as well. Both of these teams currently in playoff position. Give us the Bucs +3. I just was not impressed with that Chargers team. Even though they kept it close against the Chiefs, their offense was not great for large periods of that game, and I think that this Buccaneers defense can do enough to slow them down in that matchup, because there's some times where Justin Herbert looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and then there's other times where he looks very mediocre. I just think that J.K. Dobbins is such a crucial part of that offense, and without him, they will struggle. And then the Buccaneers, I think that their offense is great, and I do think that they will be able to keep up with the Chargers here, even against that stout defense. So even if they're losing in this game, I trust Baker Mayfield to backdoor it or get them back in the game here. I think it comes down to the buzzer late, and I will take the 3 points with the Buccaneers in that one. I think that will be a very entertaining watch. And then we get to another great game in this afternoon window, the Keystone State battle between the 10-3 Steelers and the 11-2 Eagles here. I will take the Eagles in this matchup to win outright. I just think they're the better team, and the Steelers team riding high, a little bit fraudulent at that 10-3 record. But the Eagles, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of turmoil within that locker room. Don't know what to expect there. If this spread keeps going up, it's currently at 5. If it goes up to 6 or 7, definitely look at the Steelers here, as Tomlin always motivates his guys when they are big underdogs, especially on the road. But I just think that this Eagles team and Jalen Hurts will get it right, and Saquon will have a bounce-back game in this one, even against a tough Steelers defense, potentially a dogfight in this one. But I do think that the Eagles defense in particular will win them this game against Russell Wilson and the Steelers. And that brings us to the Sunday night matchup. NFC battle between the Packers and the Seahawks. Give us the Packers minus the 2.5 points here. I just think that they're much better than the Seattle team. Seattle a little bit fraudulent at that 8-5 record, and Geno Smith has played these last few weeks on this 4-game winning streak devoid of his usual mistakes. I think they will come back here on primetime against this Packers defense here. I think that he'll throw a couple interceptions, and ultimately I just think that Jordan Love in this Packers offense is better. Matt LaFleur and this team coming off of extended rest after the brutal Thursday night loss here. I just think that this is a great bounce back spot, even in a tougher environment in Seattle on Sunday night there. I think that the Packers are a much better team, so give us the Packers minus 2.5 there. And then that brings us to the Monday night doubleheader. Give us the Bears plus the 7 against the Vikings. We had a 2-unit play on this one earlier in the season a few weeks ago, which got a bit lucky to come home there at the +4 number, and the Bears almost ended up winning outright after the onside kick there and lost in overtime by 3. But in this one, I think that the dynamics look favorable for the Bears as well, even with the 7-game losing streak and the Vikings on a 6-game winning streak. I just think that that performance against the Niners last week was so bad that they've got to be better in this game with the interim head coach, and I think that Caleb Williams will play a lot better than he did last week, and the defense cannot play worse, so I think that they'll improve a lot. And then this Vikings team, they look great on Sunday at home against Atlanta, but I think that they will regress a little. Divisional battle, these are always close in the NFC North dogfights. Bears are 3-0 against the spread in these divisional games so far this season, even though they're 0-3 outright, so I just think that this lends itself to being a very close game here. Give us the points with the Bears and the full touchdown. Then lastly, we get to the Falcons and the Raiders. Potential Desmond Ridder revenge game here. I think that he is absolutely atrocious, so give me the Falcons to win this game. Falcons currently on a 4-game losing streak in their own right. Kirk Cousins potentially could get replaced down the stretch of this season if he continues this. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in that 4-game span. But against this pretty soft Raiders defense, I do like his odds there. And then the Raiders' perspective, as I mentioned, Ridder is absolutely horrible. If Aiden O'Connell comes back, I may talk myself into a Raiders play on the spread here, as they are currently on a 9-game losing streak, I believe, and have been a little more competitive than people think. But if it's Desmond Ridder, then I can just not back them in this spot. So I think that Atlanta gets right there on Monday night. So with all that being said, let me know what you guys think of my betting locks and predictions in the comments down below. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.